You know, Meat Shields, you and me, we've been through a lot together. Death games, zombies, even evil Winnie the Pooh. Good times, man, good times. But out of all the crazy things we cover here on the channel, I feel like giant killer robots have the best shot at actually happening. And you probably guessed it, but that's exactly what we're talking about today. So imagine you're part of an elite team of army rangers that accidentally pissed off an indestructible AI death machine from outer space. What the hell are you gonna do? Well, I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat evil ChatGPT in War Machine. Our story starts early one morning somewhere deep in Afghanistan, where we find this washed-up staff sergeant pulling up on a stranded convoy. And it turns out he's actually there to help his little bro. They both joined together back when they were just kids, but his little bro isn't satisfied with just driving a Humvee all day, so while they're working on the truck, he starts saying that they should try out for the Rangers. Well, the staff sergeant thinks that he's crazy, but his brother ain't giving up, so he finally agrees to give it a shot. The only problem is they're never gonna get the chance. Because all of a sudden, boom, a huge explosion takes out one of the Humvees, and 2 seconds later, another one hits his brother's truck. Shots start popping off all over the place as he runs back to check on his bro until bang! Another one sends him flying, and he wakes up with a piece of metal stuck in his knee. But he pulls it out and stumbles over to his brother, and the next thing he knows, he's waking up on a bus somewhere in Colorado. It's been 2 years since the attack, and even though his brother didn't make it, the SSG never gave up on his promise. So he's been trying, and failing, to join the Rangers ever since. Alright, I hate to rain on my dude's parade here, but this is like actually dumb as hell. Like, I get wanting to keep his promise and all that, but my guy, sometimes you just gotta know when to quit. Bro genuinely just went through one of the most traumatic things a person could ever witness, but instead of taking some time off and going through therapy like a normal person, my boy's over here trying to join the damn Army Rangers, and I'm sorry, but that's actually insane. You see, if Broski actually went through therapy like I'm sure they told him to, he'd realize that what he's doing is actually called avoidance coping. And basically it means that he's distracting himself with this whole ranger obsession instead of actually processing what happened. What all that's gonna do is keep stuffing it down more and more until he eventually snaps. And I'm not sure if he's just delusional or what, but dude, ranger selection is no joke. These guys are some of the baddest dudes on the planet, so you know their training's gonna be nuts. I mean, we're talking about 8 straight weeks of no sleep, no PlayStation, no hugs from mommy, nothing like that. Just running, push-ups, and more running, all while a bunch of jacked up dudes are screaming at you. And they could send you home for literally any reason. I mean, it's basically like Squid Games for army dudes. Except instead of winning $1 bajillion, you just get more crappy army food and even more dangerous missions. It's literally designed to push your brain and body to the absolute breaking point. And what's crazy is my dude's already there. Like, obviously nobody's gonna be doing too good mentally after their little bro just got hit with a bazooka. But he's over here hiding pain meds and an e-brace too. So even if he wasn't already washed up and borderline too old for this, he would still need months, maybe years of physical therapy before he was actually combat ready. And even if by some miracle he actually makes it, his life's only gonna get worse from there, because then he has to actually be a ranger and watch even more people get blown up. So nah, if it was me, I'd already be chilling on a beach in Tahiti right now, just kicking back and learning to process my emotions in a healthier way. At check-in, the instructors start clowning on our guy for getting rejected 4 times already, and since he's a staff sergeant, they try making him a team leader, but he's really not into all that, so he just says, nah, I'm good, and takes a regular number. First, they gotta make it through 8 weeks of training and cuts, and even if they make it to the end, they still have to face their biggest challenge yet, which is a 24-hour mission called Death March. Sounds like fun, right? Yeah, not really. But our guy, 81, is absolutely locked in. The first weeks start off pretty much how you'd expect, but one day they're doing a drill in the pool that starts giving him flashbacks, and he ends up going so hard that he accidentally passes out. Well, that makes the sergeant major think that he's too much of a wild card, and while he's waiting outside the guy's office, he happens to catch this weird news report about an asteroid that's breaking up into matching pieces. And he's like, I wonder what that's all about. But it's probably nothing, and right now he's got other stuff to worry about, because the sergeant major wants him to drop out. He gives our guy 2 options, either quit by choice or get sent home the hard way. And if he doesn't take the deal, then he'll never get another chance. But 81 didn't come this far just to back out now. So he respectfully tells the boss to shove it and heads back to the squad. There's still one more cut before the final challenge, and this time our guy is positive that they're gonna send him packing, but it turns out that he actually made the cut. So now he's one step closer to keeping his promise. But now it's time for the Death March. And for their mission, they've got 24 hours to blow up a crashed jet, rescue the pilot, and cross the finish line, all while being hunted by the enemy team. But the Sergeant Major still has one more surprise. At least for his last test, he's making 81 the team leader. So the gang hops in their choppers and heads into the mountains, and at first it seems like things are going pretty smooth. They spend all day absolutely booking it straight towards the first target, with 81 showing zero signs of slowing down until later that night when 7 finally says they need to take a break. So 81 turns around and goes, "Alright, a 20-minute nap." Like, man, this dude is serious. And since he's not taking any chances, he decides to stay up and keep watch. Which is when this giant flash of light appears in the sky as something huge goes crashing through the trees. Like, what the? But they all think it's just some pretend artillery, you know, like part of the training. So 81 says they better keep it pushing. Well, in the morning they do come across something down in the valley, and yeah, that ain't artillery. It looks like some kind of futuristic drone or something. But remember, they're out here looking for a crashed jet. So 81 figures that this must be the target. The map guy over here points out that it's not exactly where they said it would be, but his compass has been acting up, so he could be wrong. And when they try to call base, all they get is this weird feedback on the radio, but again, they think it's just part of the test. So 81 decides to stick to the plan, but that's about to be his biggest mistake. Alright, now let's just hold the phone for just a second here, because something about this is not adding up. Like, I get why they're confused, because they're supposed to be out here looking for a classified aircraft. But bro, look at this thing. That ain't just classified, that's some straight out of Area 51. And if you know me, you know I always like to be on the safe side, so if you think I'm gonna go around and mess with something that looks like it just pulled up straight from Cybertron, nah, I absolutely will not. Like, for starters, if this thing's even from our planet, it looks way too advanced to just be using it for target practice. And to me, that's the first red flag. Because imagine how much trouble they're gonna be in if they accidentally scrap something worth $1 zillion of Pentagon research. Like, forget crossing the finish line, the Major's gonna have their butts above his fireplace like when SpongeBob ruined Mr. Krabs' first dollar. I mean, this is genuinely a career-ending mistake if he gets it wrong, so personally, I'm not taking any chances. But that's the thing, because we don't even know if this thing's actually from our planet at all. Like, for all they know, they could be looking at some kind of alien UFO or something like that. And as crazy as that sounds, it's definitely possible, because I don't know if they just forgot about this or what, but if you remember, they've been seeing all these weird news reports about some kind of giant asteroid passing by Earth's orbit. And for somebody like me, who's actually paying attention, the details about this thing were completely off. Like, the news report said it was breaking up into matching pieces, and sure, it's normal for asteroids to break apart when they hit the atmosphere, okay? But for all those pieces to be exactly the same, that's not normal. So if weird space stuff was already going on and I then find Starscream here smashed into the river, my spidey senses are definitely going to be tingling, and that's when I'm going to realize that something is off. Now, the good news is I already have a plan for how to figure all this out, because a few minutes ago the map guy mentioned something pretty important. He said this thing was only a few hundred meters off from where the map said it should be, and that's pretty close. So before I gave any orders, I would just take a quick look around to see if there was anything else nearby. That way I'd know for sure if this thing was actually the right target. And trust me, when they find out what they're actually looking at, they're gonna wish that they just had the common sense to leave it alone. Everyone gets into position while the demo team starts setting the charges, but while he's keeping a lookout for the ops, 81 notices a little reflection off in the bushes, so he decides to go over there and check it out. And what do you know? It's the jet. Uh-oh, that means whatever they just found is not part of the game, but it's too late because the boys already set the charges, and before he can warn them, boom, haha. They set off the explosion, but that's when they realize that something is not right here. Because when the smoke clears, this thing's still sitting there without a scratch. Well, that must have woke it up, because all of a sudden it starts transforming into this giant killer robot and scanning the whole valley with these crazy blue lasers. But then it switches to a red laser and locks onto this poor dude with the radio. And out of nowhere, blam, it hits him with the freaking energy beam that drops him right on the spot. Another soldier gets his head blown off as a third guy takes one through the chest, and everyone just starts running for their lives as this thing keeps taking them out one after another. This chick 44 freezes up and almost gets sent back to the lobby, but 81 tackles her at the last second and they start booking it back up the mountain until they can get to the edge of a cliff. Now there's nowhere left to run, but the robot's still right behind them, and while they're deciding what to do, it launches this little black grenade that sends everyone flying straight over the edge. So now they're all tumbling out of control straight down this cliff, and the whole way down, everyone just starts crashing into stuff and getting all busted up. One guy even takes a whole damn tree straight through the shoulder, until finally, sheesh, they all crash to the bottom. And 81 starts having more flashbacks to the day that he lost his brother. But then he notices a couple of his fingers pointing the wrong way, and after snapping them back into place, the pain shocks him back to reality. Needless to say, the situation is not good, but 81 gets up and starts trying to get things under control. Like, first up is this dude who got impaled by the tree, so they pull him off and start trying to patch him up. Then it's over to number 7, who's over here with his bones sticking through his leg. But once he's good, 81 starts coming up with a plan. They're stuck on the side of this cliff with no way down besides a straight drop to the bottom. And with nothing besides blanks and the rifles, it definitely looks like they're gonna need some backup. But the radio guy got smoked back by the river, so 81 tells the others to hang tight while he circles back to see if he can find it. Okay, well, I guess this training mission just turned into a real-life clanker fight. But honestly, half their squad would still be alive right now if they weren't out here moving like some damn NPCs. Like, talk about no survival skills. These dudes hit this thing with enough C4 to take out a small village, saw it take 0 damage, and then just stood there like, wah, as it started transforming into a 40-foot death machine. Like, brother, run for your life. I know they still weren't sure what this thing even was, but once it starts making World of War noises and locking onto you with its giant red eye, it's not really a good sign. I mean, you don't need to be a frickin' rocket scientist to know big red lights mean danger. That's just Killer Robot 101. And even if the thing wasn't a threat before, after you just tried to blow it up, yeah, it's gonna be pissed off. Oh yeah, and what makes this even worse is they had plenty of time to find cover while this thing was scanning around. But it took until it literally blew a guy's head off before they even realized it was a threat. Now personally, I would have been halfway up the mountain as soon as this thing started coming to life. But watching all these dudes get smoked actually tells us a lot about how this robot works, and more importantly, how not to get killed by it. Like, obviously this thing is huge, so they should be able to hear it and see it coming from a mile away, which actually makes hiding from it a lot easier. But also, they know their compasses go crazy whenever it's around. So all they gotta do is keep an eye on that, and they should be good. It seems like the most important thing is to avoid being seen by the laser, but the thing is, a robot doesn't see the same way people see. It's probably scanning for human shapes, heat signatures, and like electronic frequencies, and then running all that stuff through an algorithm that it uses to go, hey, that's a person. So what I do is start using camouflage by sticking a bunch of branches and stuff all over my gear, which should throw off its sensors and help me blend in with my surroundings. I'd also straight up get rid of anything that might be sending an electronic signal, because it's definitely going to use that to track us down, for sure. And if that thing's using thermal, that makes hiding from it a little bit more complicated, right? But even then, it's not X-ray vision, so all you gotta do is hide behind a rock or some bushes. You should be alright. And if worse comes to worse, taking a mud bath, Predator style, like Arnold did in that movie, can actually hide your heat signature, at least for a little bit. So I would just cover myself in the mud and hope for the best. Now, when it comes to fighting this thing, they might be able to do some damage by using its own weapons against it. But with nothing but blanks in their rifles, there's really not much they can do right now, so if it was me, I would just try to avoid getting spotted and get back to base, and then hopefully they could blast it with some heavy artillery, and we'd all be set. All right, pause. Breaking news, this is a Hood public service announcement. We've just hit 3 million subscribers. The journey over the last few years has been colossal. Now, the team and I want to thank every single one of you for making this happen. And I got just one question for you. How long till we hit that 4 million? Hey, tell a friend to tell a friend, we surviving the apocalypse out here. And remember, you don't have to be stronger than the meat shield next to you. You just gotta run faster. Big things on the way. We got that 3 million subscribers celebration live stream. You heard me. Stop by and let's figure out how to beat every challenge along the way. You guys are the best. And now, back to the show. After making his way back over to the crash site, 81 finds the radio guy chilling behind some rocks. And it looks like the radio got smoked too. Dang! That's when he spots another guy who's still alive, but before he can even try to help him, the mech just comes stomping over and vaporizes this dude with no hesitation. Then it starts scanning their tracks and heading for his buddies. so he books it back over there to try and warn them. Now by the time he gets back to the group, 57's already hit 0 HP, but there's still no time to waste, because if they don't get out of there soon, the evil Gundam is going to smoke them all. Their only choice is to rappel down the rest of the cliff, so everyone starts scrambling to get out of there before the robot catches up, but the only problem is 7 can't do much climbing with his broken leg, which means one guy has to stay back and help him lower him down. But right before he's about to reach the bottom, the mech finally spots them and blam! It blasts 96 with its lasers, sending 7 crashing straight to the ground. It just starts trucking right down the hill until it stops on the cliff right above him. Now the good news is, it still hasn't seen them yet, but then it starts scanning around with its blue lasers, looking for any survivors, and it almost works until, oh no, it sees 7's leg sticking out, and then bam, it just goes straight back into combat mode. Now everyone gets up and starts running for their lives as the mech starts opening fire with its lasers, but just when it seems like they're out of range, the freaking thing unlocks a new ability and starts launching a bunch of grenades straight into their path. So boom, explosions start going off all around them as dozens of these little bombs keep dropping from the sky, but just when it looks like they're done for, the mech has to stop and vent off some energy, so they're able to slip away, at least for now. Okay, first of all, that was pretty embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't know if these guys went deaf from all the explosions or what, but somebody tell me how they just let frickin' Megatron catch them lacking. I mean, seriously, this thing's the size of a house, so it's not exactly like it's built for stealth, and you're telling me not a single person heard it fee-fi-fo-fumming its way over there until it was already right on top of them? That's just insane. Yeah, but even after it blasted 96 into next week, they still had plenty of time as it was slowly walking down the hill to just get up and run for cover. I mean, the only one who couldn't run was 7, so I would just pick him up and dip into the trees and poof, I'm gone. But that's not even the worst part, because once this thing started scanning for survivors, all these dummies had to do was pull 7's leg back literally a few inches, and they would have been alright. But instead of, just moving them over, they genuinely just sat there like a bunch of NPCs until RoboCop pulled up and caught them in 4K. Like, come on, 81, get it together, my man. Now, once this thing started firing off those grenades, yeah, that might seem pretty intimidating at first, but if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, it's light work. Because take a look at how they were dropping and tell me what you notice. The mech was only launching them in a straight line ahead of their path, so instead of continuing to run into them, like a dumbass, I would just move over a few feet in either direction and bingo, I survived. Another thing we learned is that evil ChatGPT keeps tracking their footprints, but just like before, we can actually use camouflage to throw it off. And there's even a way that we can use that against it if we want to get creative. So the first thing I would do is grab a bunch of the little branches and strap them around the sides of my boots with one branch hanging off the back of my heels like a tiny broom. Now what that's gonna do is break up the outline of my footprints and even cover up my trail as I'm walking, and even if it's not much, it might be enough to throw off its sensors and buy us some time. But we can even take it a step further, get it? Step, because if we know the thing's following our prints, then one guy can just split up from the group, leaving an obvious trail that heads in the wrong direction, and then just turn around and sneak back up to the squad. The robot should follow the footprints like a robot, and by the time it realizes that it just got finessed, I'll already be back at base chilling while they send in an airstrike and blow it up. Easy peasy, better luck next time. They make it all the way to the top of the next mountain before 81 finally lets them stop for a break, but they're pretty sure the robot is still after them, so one guy gets out his binoculars and starts keeping watch. Then we've got number 7 with his broken leg, and 81 starts panicking as those memories from Afghanistan come racing back, but 7 is just like, chill bro, you can do it, and that's when he realizes this is finally his chance to save somebody. So right then, 81 decides to lock the fuck in. So he grabs 7's leg and he just snaps it back into place, and 7 immediately blacks out from the pain. The others are still wondering why Base would have set them up, but that's when 81 breaks the news that they hit the wrong target, so whatever that thing is, it's got nothing to do with their mission. They still need some backup, and without a radio, they ain't making any calls, so 81 decides that their only choice is to head for the second objective, where hopefully they'll find somebody who can help them. Well, they make it all the way to the river without running into any more trouble, but that's when they hit their first problem, because now they gotta find a way across. And it looks like it only gets rougher the further up they go, so 81 decides that it's now or never, and that means that they're gonna have to use a zip line. But somebody has to get to the ropes first, and of course 81 says that he's got it covered, so he tells the others to hang back and sticks out his compass in a tree. That way they'll know if the robot is getting close. Now the river is moving fast, so 81 has to swim upstream to fight the current, but he dives into the freezing water and starts swimming across, only to suddenly disappear under the rapids. Now for a second it looks like our boy is donezo, but just when his buddies are starting to worry, bro pops out of the water like Aquaman and climbs out on the other side. Now all they gotta do is set the lines and start climbing across, and first up, they send 15 over, pulling 7 behind him. Everything is going fine until they get to the very middle, but that's when the stretcher gets stuck on a knot, so 15 starts climbing back to try and muscle it through. But while he's doing that, the frickin' stretcher slips, leaving 7 dangling right above the rapids. 81 and 44 immediately jump on the rope and start climbing over, which makes 109 run down to try and help, but now nobody's watching the compass, and as soon as he's gone, the needle starts going all crazy-like, which can only mean one thing: that robot is coming back. Well, sure enough, here comes Skynet right at the worst possible time, and 23 just looks back knowing that he's cooked as this thing turns around and blasts him into a million pieces. The hit sends everyone else dropping straight into the river, but the rope around 81's foot gets caught in some tracks. At the same time, the mech follows them in and keeps blasting with its lasers, and it almost squashes 81 before he manages to get free. But it ain't over yet, because every time he pops up for air, the mech fires a shot that almost takes him out, until finally the current carries him away. That's when he spots 7 going for the worst water ride of his life. So he swims over and starts trying to keep him up, but the current is too strong, and there's nothing he can do as they all get pulled straight over a giant waterfall. Whee! Yeah, but second, have these idiots learned nothing? Like, I might be able to understand getting caught slipping by this thing once, but twice? Again, we're talking about a gigantic building-sized robot with the same stealth level as the damn Kool-Aid Man, and yet these bozos are over here getting caught by surprise every single time. Maybe if it had some kind of cloaking technology or whatever, I could let it slide, but nah, this is just getting redonkulous. And they even had the compass trick figured out. Like, what more do you need? But speaking of being obvious, by now they're fully aware that the robot's tracking their footprints and probably listening for them too. But they haven't done a single damn thing to cover their tracks, and not only that, they're over here hooting and hollering every 2 seconds when this thing can probably hear a mouse fart from the next solar system. So I don't know, but maybe try shutting the hell up. And remember, these are rangers, so they're supposed to be able to communicate with, like, hand signals and stuff. So I'd be doing that instead of making all kinds of noise. But you know, you can't fix stupid. But what's hilarious is these dummies actually put themselves in such a bad position that falling over a damn waterfall was genuinely their best option. And that got me thinking, if I was about to go over a waterfall, how the hell would I survive? Well, the first thing you gotta do is just accept it, because there's no way you're out swimming the current. And you're gonna need that energy if you survive the fall. Then you wanna get your feet pointed downstream, because what you're gonna do next is basically just like a classic pencil dive. You wanna keep your chin tucked and hit the water feet first, that way you don't get knocked out. But as long as you get lucky and don't hit any rocks, there's actually a chance that you might survive. So now you know. But anyway, like I said, this was actually the best thing that could have happened to them, because now it's gonna take a while for the robot to pick up their tracks. So if they were smart, now would be a good time to break out all those camouflage ideas I just mentioned before. Then I would just keep trucking back to base and hopefully get there before Ultron tracks us down. Sometime later, 81 wakes up on the edge of the river with his buddies all gathered around, and it looks like they all made it, even number 7. And while he was passed out, they met up with this dude number 60 who got launched into the water during the first attack. But there's some more bad news, because he hasn't seen any sign of the instructors, and they're worried that even if they find them, they won't actually be much help. There's only a few miles from the next objective, but before they can even catch their breath, they see a bunch of ducks take off on top of the waterfall, which means that the robot has got to be getting close. So 81 decides that they better dip out before it finds them. They start making their way back through the forest when 81 notices something. It's a tripwire attached to a flare, meaning that they must be near the base. But by the time that they get there, the place is already toast, and there's nothing left of the outpost besides a bunch of burning bodies, which probably explains why no one ever came to help. And as 81 looks around, he realizes that that robot crashed straight through the mountain and took out the whole base. Like, man, talk about bad luck here. So he gives it approximately 2 seconds before going, "All right, time to hit the road." It ends up leading to this huge fight between him and 15 because, like, unlike 81, he actually needs time to process his feelings and stuff. But then 15 calls him a hero and 81 absolutely snaps. And that's when we learn why he's so obsessed with crossing the finish line. The truth is that back in Afghanistan, 81 passed out right before making it to base, meaning that his brother would still be alive if he could have held on just a little bit longer. So he's been living with the guilt of what happened ever since, and says that all they have to do is get back and warn the others. There's an armored truck nearby that looks like it could be their ticket out of there, but it's stuck on a bunch of random crap, so they all gotta use the winch to pull it loose. The engine won't start either, but 15 jumps in and gets it fired up because it turns out he's a mechanic as well, and 81 is like, dang, I'm actually starting to like this guy. Well, they get the truck rolling with the power of friendship, and for a minute it seems like they're actually making some progress. But just when everyone starts feeling confident again, one of the flares goes off from somewhere in the distance, and you know what that means. The killer microwave must have tracked them down. Well, it looks like they better get to dipping, and one guy hops on the 50 cal to provide some cover, but it's got no ammo, so 15 decides that he's just gonna run back and grab some. No, 15, don't do it! But by the time that he gets there, the robot is already right on top of them. And as he's booking it back to his truck, wham! The mech blasts him with a direct hit, so just like that, our boy 15 is history. I mean, I guess even the killer robot got tired of this dude yapping. Maybe all these motivational speeches finally went to his head. It's just too bad they motivated him to be a total idiot. So I hate to break it to you, my boy, but 15, you done f***ed up. Like, of all the times to decide to be a hero, it's kind of crazy that now's when he decided to step up. Because I don't know if he realized this, but literally nobody needed him to do what he just did. They already hit this thing with enough C4 to level a building, and it didn't even leave a scratch. And that was before they woke it up, so what did he think a bunch of regular bullets were gonna do? I mean, granted, they're big bullets, but come on, they're gonna need a tank to take this thing down at a minimum. And the truck was already ready to go, so if anything, all he actually did was slow down everybody else. So thanks a lot for that, I guess. Now, if he had just used his brain and got in the truck, they could have been halfway back to base by now, but he ended up getting smoked for absolutely no reason. And the worst part about it is that he thought he went out like a G. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, 15, but the truth is you done f***ed up. Well, 15 might be done for, but the good news is one of the ammo crates just got launched into the truck, so 44 floors it in reverse as the mech starts chasing them down, and the guy on the 50 starts opening fire, but the rounds just keep bouncing right off. And 44 has to hit a quick K-turn so that they can actually pick up some speed, and suddenly the mech just stops in its tracks because the robot starts launching a bunch of grenades onto the road. They're able to avoid the first couple of hits, but the robot just says, alright, bet, and starts hitting them with everything it's got. And this time, the blast sends them barreling straight down the side of the mountain. It's a pretty bumpy ride to the bottom, but they make it with the truck still in one piece, but somehow the mech is already one step ahead of them, and just when it looks like they're in the clear, the robot just launches off the cliff and drops down right in front of them. That's when it opens its mouth and starts firing off a damn Kamehameha, but they dodge the hit at the last second and start speeding through the valley with the robot right on their 6. Now this thing is gonna rip them apart if they don't do something soon, so 81 hands his buddy a rifle and tells him to start blasting, while he picks up a grenade launcher and starts firing back. But my dude with the pea shooter gets his arm blown off in about 2 seconds flat, and the mech launches another power blast that rips the back of the truck completely in half. So at this point, things are literally falling apart, and frickin' 7 slides off the back of the truck, forcing 81 to hold on to him for dear life. But the strap eventually breaks, and 81 grabs the grenade launcher and fires it into the mountain, finally crushing the mech under a bunch of falling rocks. But when he looks up at the driver's seat, 44 is already donezo, and slam, the truck crashes straight into a ditch. Man, I hope this giant robot has insurance, but you're probably wondering, what's my master plan for surviving this one? Well, I'll tell you, because I got a few ideas. First off, they're gonna need a better getaway driver, because I'm sorry, but 44 just sold it mad hard. Now, if it was me driving this rig, then as soon as the robot launched that huge barrage of grenades in front of the truck, I would have simply slammed on the brakes, waited for them all to blow up, and then just zipped right back to HQ like easy. And now that we know this truck came with its own grenade launcher, that makes going back for the ammo even more useless, because we already know that regular hits weren't doing anything. But the launcher does give me an idea. If there's one thing I've learned from playing way too many video games, it's how to spot a weak point. So when this thing started opening up its laser, that's when I would strike. I would just launch a grenade right in there, blow the whole thing up from the inside, and that's that. No more giant robot. 81 wakes up to find himself on the ground near the wrecked truck. His buddies are all toast, just like the last time, so it looks like he's the only survivor once again. But he's still hell-bent on saving his boy, so he heads off to go find him. He ends up finding part of the mech still buried under the rocks, but when he looks across the valley, he sees the robot firing off some kind of signal into the air. That can't be good, but hey, there's 7, and as luck would have it, he's still alive. But that's when a bunch of ammo starts firing off back at the truck, and sure enough, Big Dog hears the sound and goes back into Decepticon mode. So 81 decides that he better get the f*** out of there before the thing pulls up. He keeps dragging 7 for miles through the mud and the rain, but at this point he's barely keeping it together, and just when it seems like things couldn't get any worse, his watch goes off, meaning he's already out of time to cross the finish line. For 81, that is the last straw, but just when he's about to give up, 7 finally opens his eyes and he says something that completely changes the game. It turns out that he knew 81's little bro, and he would have been there the day they got ambushed, except he just so happened to be on leave. So for 81, this is kinda like a chance to save his brother all over again, and that gives him the strength to lock in one last time. Now the mech is still out there searching for them, but all this talk about his brother makes 81 remember how the kid always used too much stop leak, and that gives him another idea, so he tells 7 to sit right there while he takes this thing down. So with 7 laying low, 81 heads to this old quarry he saw on the ride over and starts looking around for any supplies, and bingo! There's a bunch of dynamite, a flare gun, and the power is still on. How convenient. So now all he's got to do is wait for the mech to show up and take the bait. I'm not gonna lie, 81's idea is actually pretty good. He's about to try and overheat the robot by clogging up its vents. But even though it sounds like a solid plan, my only question is, why? I mean, we're talking about one guy with no real weapons, just some crazy plan he just cooked up. But meanwhile, 7's back there barely clinging to life, and there's a perfectly good truck sitting right in the garage. Now me, I know how to quit when I'm ahead, so instead of trying to fight this thing all by myself, I would just throw a spare tire on that truck, plant a bunch of explosives all over the quarry, and then turn on the machines as I drove off. The bot should take the bait and hopefully get blown up in the huge explosion, and I can just pick up 7 and cruise back to the base without any trouble. And that's a lot easier than trying to take this thing on in a 1v1. Sure enough, the mech ends up following 81's footprints straight into the quarry, but little does it know that's exactly what he wants. Kablam! He sets off a bunch of dynamite right under its feet that sends the robot face planting into the pit. Then out of nowhere, bro comes flying out whipping a damn bulldozer and starts sumo wrestling Megatron until it's backed up against the wall. He waits until it's right under a conveyor belt before smacking the big red button, sending a bunch of gravel pouring down that starts clogging up the bot's vents. But the mech starts firing its jet boosters to give it some extra power, and it actually manages to push him back. It starts firing up its Kamehameha again, but that takes the power away from its boosters, so 81 is able to push it back under the belt, and this time he's not letting it get away. So the bot knocks down a crane as it starts overheating, forcing 81 to bail before he gets squished. But the damage is already done, and kaboom, the mech explodes in a giant fireball that finally shuts it down. But just as one last screw you, the thing dumps all its bombs right before it dies. And 81 manages to get away before a massive explosion takes everything out. The next morning, the Sergeant Major is absolutely shocked when 81 comes walking into the base with 7 over his shoulders. But the dude doesn't stop until he carries him all the way to the finish line, so it looks like they finally made it after all. And that's the good news, but the bad news is that wasn't the only robot. Hundreds of them hit all around the globe, and even though they managed to take them out, NASA says that there's a whole army still on the way. So the Major wants to know how he took one down without any weapons. Well, 81 explains the whole overheating trick, and the Sergeant Major finally gives 81 his Ranger scroll, meaning that he's officially a part of the team, but there's still a whole robot apocalypse out there about to pop off any minute, so the Major asks him to give a little pep talk to the dudes who are about to go fight. And even though it was never really his thing, 81 ends up crushing it, because now he finally knows what it means to be a leader. But if there's one thing we know about this guy 81, it's that he doesn't know when to quit, and without skipping a beat, he's right back on the chopper on the way to the next fight. But if there's one lesson we can all learn here, if you see a random UFO in the woods, just leave the damn thing alone, please. War Machine 2026, Netflix starting off their programming with some solid sci-fi robot stuff. Kind of reminds me of Terminator Salvation. What do you think? Would you like to see War Machine 2? You gotta let me know everything, and if we should have done something differently in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. Check out that How to Beat playlist. For more videos just like this one, I'm Ben. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.